And we're going to have a presentation from Rob Bench from Radius. Radius has been a phenomenal partner for Nanda through the early days to get us up and running with multiple fellowships. And here's Rob Bench to explain. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. The fun thing about MIT is you never know when things are going to start. You never know when you'll be on, and you never know the temperature of the room you're in. So for those who are sweating and not knowing what time it is, it's good to be here. I'm Robert Bench from Radius. We're a spin out of the MIT Media Lab. And so we've been working on the idea that for these agentic systems to work, at some point they need to incentivize each other. Starting in 1995, when the modern internet was created, there was no way to pay each other, despite the best efforts of Mark Andreessen at Illinois and Vince CERN in the Web3 team, the www team, and CERN, and later MIT with Tim Berners-Lee. It all ended up being advertising. And so how do we let AI pay each other? And Matthew Prince from Cloudflare brought this up at MTech. I'm going to bring it back up. What you're seeing now for internet middleware providers, and I think we have Akamai in the room, they know this very well, is that we have foundation model companies grabbing as much of the open internet as they can. But one of those companies has a backdoor, and that's Google. And so what happens to the open internet when the company that has a backdoor to it scrapes the whole thing? For no price, no cost, your work is there to use in perpetuity. So how do you handle Cloudflare's problem was, how do we charge for 200 million transactions a second? And Matthew Prince called this a new business model of the internet. In 1995, the business model of the internet began with advertising. That's now breaking. So what do we do? How do we charge for it? And what's the technology needed to do it? One thing we like to look at here is CapEx. If you look up from about 2005 to 2015, Google and Meta almost spent very, very little of the revenue on CapEx. They didn't need to, because all they really worried about was you swiping and clicking and scrolling, and they could sell you ads. With the advent of Transformer Paper and really OpenAI pushing the envelope on them, you're starting to see them having to spend a lot more of their revenue on CapEx. And so they're no longer as profitable as they thought they'd be. Now, Google smartly invented GCP, and that's a good product, and they're making some money on it, but Meta really hasn't changed. So all of a sudden, we need a new business model. So how are these firms going to make money, and how will the internet work if advertising is no longer pumping the pipes? If I want you guys to remember one thing today, it's this. This is what we care about here at Radius, is that the overwhelming amount of goods and services in the world are not currently monetizable. I'll say that again. They're not currently monetizable. What does that mean? That means that every single data point on the open internet is a good, and you can't charge for it. There's almost no way to digitally charge for less than $1, and that is because payment settlement systems ultimately originate at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. It takes a lot of intermediaries to get there. Those intermediaries have persons, and it has costs. So for the overwhelming amount of goods and services, you cannot charge for them. That is what we need to fix, and that's what we're working on at Radius, and that's what we worked on at the MIT Media Lab since 2001. So this is a good example of this. If you look at the forms of payment networks by size and daily volume, this came from Nick Carter, a venture capitalist at Castle Island Ventures, you'll see that there's two gaps. You can do big commercial transfers way on the right. These are interbank settlements, effectively. It's CHAPS, CHIPS, FedWire. And then you have a big gap here. That gap here, for those of us who are old or lucky enough to be able to afford a mortgage, that's that mortgage down payment check that you handed a bank, right? You can't do that. It's really hard to do that to a bank. And so there's really no way to spend $100,000 digitally. It's really, really hard to do. And then you got all these other things between $10 and $10,000, and that is your car payment, that's your rent payment, etc. But the far left is what we care about. Far left is it's almost impossible to spend less than $1 digitally. That's really, really bizarre, isn't it? You can send an email with one letter on it. You can send an email with one picture on it. I can text you one letter. I can text you even a song, but I can't send you $1 because it's too damn expensive. The technology has not been built. So we're building this. So if you think about Cloudflare's problem, Cloudflare has 200 million events per second they want to start charging people with. And if you're Akamai, you may have similar numbers. So, but how do you charge people per data, per scrape, per API call? Well, you can use wire transfers. They do a lot big numbers. But if you use Cloudflare's numbers, it would cost $5 billion per second to run Cloudflare. So that probably wouldn't work. If you used ACH, which is a common large transfer mechanism, it's also fairly cheap in the Federal Reserve System. That's $100 million. Visa is everywhere you want to be. It's America's, the Western world's largest payment provider. That's 70 million a second. That probably won't work. Ethereum, let's go with crypto. Let's go with ETH. I've been in crypto for about 10 years now. ETH sounds good. That's 3 billion a second, but the network's going to fall over if you try to use it, so that's not even possible. Base is Coinbase's top of the line, best product, fastest product. Coinbase is probably the best tech company in crypto. That goes to $1.4 million a second to run. And they're the ones actually currently partnering with Cloudflare on the X402 standard. I'm pretty sure Cloudflare doesn't want to spend 1.4 million a second. Also, Base will fall over if you try to do 200 million a second. Solana's getting there. Solana's actually really interesting. Solana gets to $240,000 a second, which is expensive, but it's still pretty good compared to Base, right? Which is Coinbase's top of the line product. Radius is what we're building at MIT, and we spun out 2 years ago. It's at $20 a second. If you run Cloudflare at $20 a second, trying to paywall the entire internet, that may be a business. That may be a new business model of the internet. This has been proven here at the lab at MIT. It's been proven at our offices down the street in Central Square. If we're going to build a new internet, if we're going to build an agentic internet, and one that appropriately pays users for their data, their content, their music, and pays those middleware providers for the services they provide that's not based on ads, you're going to have to solve the hard problem of linearly scalable distributed systems running smart contracts. That's what we do at Radius. We've been working on it for 4 years, and we go live next month. Please come reach out to us if you want to talk. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.
Thanks very much, Rob.